Hello, everyone. Welcome to or back to Reptile Coffee Club. So, if you are new here and you've never seen an episode of Reptile Coffee Club, this is where I have on YouTube Live some of my favorite reptile content creators or people in the reptile community in general. And we talk about their different paths and how they got into keeping reptiles. And then we just have lots of super fun conversations. So, hello to everyone who is joining in the chat. So I wanted to make a quick announcement first. Reptile Coffee Club, now you can listen to it as a podcast if you want. You just have to join the Patreon for $1 a month, and it really supports the channel. If you have any suggestions for future guests, feel free to send us an email, reptilecoffeeclub@hunterhouck.com. And without further ado, welcome Zowie from ZA Reptiles.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. How are you today?
Fantastic. And ever since watching your first episode of doing this, loved it. It's very excited when you asked me to come on.
Well, I was so excited when we saw you in the chat the first time. I'm like, oh my gosh, Zowie is watching. I have to have her on.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of fun. So I'm very excited to get a turn.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very fun time. So I guess first, I just wanted to have a little icebreaker. If you could tell us about your first reptile or first reptile keeping experience.
Yeah, so I actually got into reptiles. I've always liked them, but never really had them until I was in high school. I was taking a 2-year biology course, my junior and senior year, getting ready to go to college for all that zookeeping stuff. And my biology teacher actually had a leopard gecko in the classroom. And I know a lot of people think like classroom pets, like kind of like, maybe not. But she actually, looking back on it, had pretty good care for him. He had a 20-gallon long, lots of variety in food and whatnot. But that really got me interested in reptiles and maybe wanting a lizard. I'd always wanted a chameleon because of Tangled, super basic. But I knew that that was a more advanced species to keep. So I wanted to start with something simpler. So I was looking at maybe leopard gecko or bearded dragon. And it was actually on my Christmas list that year. And my parents were so close to getting me one. And then they found out I couldn't take it to college with me. So they got me a laptop instead so I could take that to college. But the following spring, we were visiting my grandparents in Vermont. And I walked into PetSmart and they had an adoption event going on. And there was a leopard gecko, 2-year-old leopard gecko. And he was being put up for adoption because his owner went to college and the mom didn't want to take care of him, didn't really know what to do. So she brought him to PetSmart and they put him up for adoption. And that was my first reptile was Zephyr, who we still have with us. But the agreement was he was going to be the family gecko since he couldn't come to college with me. So he's still here. He lives downstairs where the whole family can have fun with him. But he's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
That's how it
leopard
pretty much got started.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think leopard geckos are definitely a great first pet reptile. That was my first reptile too, and I have never regretted it.
Oh, for sure.
So for those of you who don't know, Zowie kind of started out her career in the zoo field. So Zowie, if you want to tell us about how you kind of got your start in zoo education and what experience and degrees did that require?
Yeah, sure. So that's one of those things that, like, I always knew I wanted to do. So I had a lot of time to research and prepare because part of the hard part becoming a zookeeper or anything in the zoo field is trying to figure out how to get started and get yourself there because there's not really a lot of information on that. So luckily I had plenty of time to do that. And every time we went on a family vacation, we always had to go to a zoo. So I usually connected with keepers there. After their keeper talk, I would go talk to them and like ask them where they went to school, what they did, to try to get some of the inside scoop, which is very helpful. So I definitely, if that's something you're looking into doing, for anybody watching, I definitely recommend trying to make connections and seeing the different paths that everyone took because everyone's got a different path. But mine specifically, I chose a really well-known program in the US, a really good school that was close to a zoo. So that I knew not only was I going to be learning things in the classroom, but I would have hands-on opportunities as well, because that's definitely the most important thing for getting in the zoo field is having those hands-on opportunities and the experiences to back you up. And that's what really sets you apart. So the knowledge is great, the degree is great, but it's the experience that really solidifies your place in the zoo field. So I went to school for animal behavior, ecology, and conservation, and I had a minor in zoo biology. So I was very grateful that with my degree, there was a lot of different ways you could go, pretty much anything you wanted to do in conservation. education, ecotourism, zookeeping, animal nutrition, anything like that.
Yeah.
It was all covered under that degree. And there was a bunch of different classes for everything: animal training, zoo management, animal nutrition. Like there was everything. So it really was like the perfect degree. And it was great because I knew what I wanted to do. So I was able to focus in on all of the zoo classes. So zoo management, I took zoo exhibitry several times, which was a class where we traveled on like spring break or fall break. We would go to a bunch of different zoos and aquariums,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
it was so much fun. And it was really the way to travel because for like $300 for like 5 days, you got to go travel to all these zoos. Hotels were covered under that. Food was covered under that. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was so awesome. And I did it, I think, 3 times because each trip was different zoos. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, why not? So I got to experience a lot more places that way, make a lot more connections that way.
Yeah.
And so that was super cool and super helpful. So it's just stuff like that. And then, of course, the zoo was there. So I did a lot of internships through the zoo that was local, also a local aquarium. And so that's really how I got started with that, got my foot in the door. And then I made my way into zoo education because I have a lot of experience as an educator. I've coached skating for over a decade, so I've worked with all sorts of different kids, different ages. So that looked really good to the zoo that I applied to as a keeper, and they needed someone for the education department. So that's how I kind of flip-flopped over to that side.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. So our next question, let's see here, is so you worked in the zoo field as a zoo educator for how long was it?
It was not quite a year.
Yeah.
Yep, it was quite short-lived. I went in, I got the experience, but then I was offered my job as well, my job I have now back home.
Yeah.
And ultimately it was better suited for my lifestyle. So I
Mhm.
snagged that and moved back home.
Yeah, well, that's awesome that you found like a way to make that work so that you could have the job that you like, and especially since you had all that good experience. But I guess was there something that ultimately made you leave the zoo field, and how did it feel when you made that decision? Was it a relief, or were you pretty nervous?
So it was definitely a hard decision to make. And still to this day, there are moments where, it kind of, I do get down a little bit about it because I spent my whole life working my way into the zoo field and preparing to be a zookeeper. That was everything, being a zookeeper. And I finally made it to that place, not quite zookeeping, but I was at least full time in a zoo. Um,
Yeah,
so it was hard to make the decision to leave, but ultimately, what made me leave, there was a couple of different things. I had to move somewhere new where I didn't know anybody. I
yeah.
didn't have any friends there. Obviously, I could make friends, although it was difficult because I was pretty much the youngest one at the zoo, and I lived 30 minutes outside of the city where the zoo was.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone that I worked closely with had significant others, had families, had kids. So I was kind of on my own. So it was a little lonely. Also,
Mhm.
pay is a big thing. Going into the zoo field that you're going to be making minimum wage. It's not a very good livable wage, especially for someone like me that has lots of animals to take care of. I was able
Mhm.
to budget and make it work, but it was tight. It definitely was not very comfortable. And then the big thing being skating. I, being on
Mhm.
that tight budget, really couldn't afford to skate, but I also didn't live near a rink, wasn't able to coach because the times didn't work out. And so being down there helped me realize how important skating and coaching was. Like I already knew skating was important, but once you couldn't do it and you couldn't coach, it wasn't even an option. That really hit me hard. So I wanted to be somewhere where I could prioritize and continue with skating and coaching, which this job allows me to do. So
Yeah.
overall, there was a lot more reasons to leave the zoo field than to stay. It is
Mhm.
still hard because I worked so hard to get into the zoo field, but I kind of had to weigh the pros and cons. So here we are. But I'm
Yeah.
skating again and coaching again and absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can definitely see how, if that's something you had dreamed of your whole life, making that decision might have been pretty hard, but I'm glad you made the decision that was right for you to move back to the nature center, which that kind of leads us into our next topic, which is what do you do with the nature center? And then what is that like? And what are kind of the similarities and differences to what you were doing at the zoo?
Right. So I knew we were going to be getting into this, so I kind of left a little bit of this out in an earlier
Yeah.
question. But what really made me look good to the education department on top of coaching was I had worked part time at the nature center already after school or after college, waiting for a zoo job. So at the nature center, I, as a part timer, did a lot of the programs. I did field trip groups, like our daily programs. I
Yeah.
did help with some of the animal care because that's what I needed on my resume. So my boss definitely made sure that I did a lot of that. So basically everything I did at the nature center was what I would be doing as a zoo educator. So that's
Yeah.
really how I ended up snagging the zoo education job. So going to the zoo, getting a lot more experience with that really put me ready to come back to the nature center full time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, my job at the nature center, my title is a naturalist, but ultimately my job is head of animal care, which
Mhm.
is another pro, another good reason to come back because it takes a long time to climb that ladder in the zoo field. We're a very small group. There's only 4 of us with a couple part
Mhm.
timers. So we each kind of have our own thing. And so my thing is caring for the animals. So that was super awesome. So care for all the turtles, the fish, the aquariums, couple frogs. We're not allowed to have birds or mammals. I
Yeah.
keep poking and pestering and hoping one day that they'll let us have something else, like a possum or
Oh,
a
yeah.
merlin, a little owl, something. So fingers crossed someday in the future.
Yeah.
But so I do love the animal care, but also I still do. Ooh, sorry, just move my laptop. I do a lot of programming still too. So our daily programs, any groups, birthday parties if we have them, but we haven't had them the last year or
Right.
so with everything going on. But when that
Mhm.
picks up again, birthday parties. So a
For
little bit
sure.
of everything because we're such a small staff at a small facility, but mostly the animal care.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And so, just out of curiosity, is that a federal program or a state program that runs the nature center?
So we are, how do I describe this? So
Kind of like a
basically,
partnership?
we're a nonprofit, but we are
Okay.
funded by the Power Authority.
Mhm.
So we aren't allowed to accept donations. We don't take money. Our whole facility is free. Um, but we are given the money we need to run the facility by the Power
Yeah.
Authority. So we're very, very
Cool.
fortunate for a nature center. Not a lot of nature centers have that kind of backing. So they do
Right.
have to charge admission or ask for donations or have charity events or whatnot.
Mhm.
And we're very fortunate that we've got such a big big organization backing us that
Yeah.
we can pretty much do whatever we need to for the animals, any programs we want to try. We've got a lot of freedom to try different things, and we're very fortunate.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that probably is another thing that does differ from the zoo because I know they have very strict guidelines, and the AZA kind of has handbooks for everything that you really have to follow, and so if
Absolutely.
there's something that you think is better, you can't really have the freedom to give it a try.
Absolutely. AZA it's very expensive to have your AZA accreditation.
Mhm.
They've got the strict guidelines to follow, but even just getting the accreditation is extremely expensive. So I know several facilities that follow their guidelines but don't finalize it because of the cost.
Right.
They'd rather put the cost towards the facility and the animals than just
Yeah.
having the label. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it is nice to have a lot of that freedom. I mean, when I came back, I changed so much stuff. I threw out so much of the stuff that they had, and I said, "Okay, we need this. We need this." My boss is like, "Just send me an Amazon wish list." Great. And so every
That's
time,
awesome.
I think this turtle needs a bigger tank. I think the mud puppy needs a bigger tank. She's like, "All right, let's do it. As long as you can make sure that there's room for it." She's like, "Send me a link. I'll buy it." I'm like, "Yes."
That
So
is
that is really
awesome.
nice because we definitely don't have that in a zoo. I mean, zoos are usually struggling enough as it is. Um,
Yeah.
so then to try to encourage a bunch of different upgrades, more expensive equipment, more expensive lighting, that was stuff
Right.
we couldn't really. You could only do so much of at the zoo. I couldn't walk into the education department and be like, all of this needs to change. All of these enclosures are too small. Where at the nature center, I can walk in and be like, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have the freedom because then you can help
Yes.
them. And I know you have mentioned like there was someone who came in. like a younger girl who came in and asked you about how to care for, was it a leopard gecko? And then you guys kind of wrote back and forth for a while.
Yes. Yeah. So last year when we were closed, because we were closed for like 8 months last year when everything was going on, we
Yeah,
tried to do like a pen pal thing and we put it out like, write to one of the naturalists, have your questions answered. You could write us about
that's
anything,
awesome.
animals, ask us about the animals in the nature center, plants, whatever. And we did. We
Hmm.
had one little girl, her name was Mia, and she
Oh,
wrote a letter asking about leopard gecko information because she was doing a ton of research. I think she's in 5th grade now, so she would have been like a 4th grader last year. And so obviously they passed that letter on to me to respond to. And I think I feel so bad, but it helped her. I sent her back like a 3-page letter, like front and back printer paper packed full of information because it was like what size, what supplements, where should I get it from? So I had to go into explaining like Reptile Expo's breeders, how to find a good breeder,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So here we are like a year later, and I just got another letter from her. She's
Oh,
ready for her second lizard. She wants something similar, but not really another leopard gecko. And it was so cool seeing someone so young doing all that research because she had it all laid out. She had very specific questions. I looked at bearded dragons. I don't think this is
mhm.
good for me, and this is why. I looked at crested
Yeah.
geckos. I'm not sure if this is good for me, and this is why. What do you think? So I literally wrote back the next day. And then a couple of days later, had another letter from her. So in the past like
Oh,
2 weeks, I've gotten 2 letters from her. And it sounds like she decided to go with a crested gecko. And so
awesome.
she was very specific questions again. Is this a good size enclosure? Should I get male or female? And it's amazing seeing someone that young doing so
Yeah.
much like very thorough research before getting an animal. So it's super cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That's something that you don't always see, especially with young people. They will just go to the PetSmart or Petco and
Yep.
get one of their little trifold care guides that don't really
Oh
have the
yeah.
best information. So that's always a great change when you see someone, especially younger, doing the right research for sure.
Oh yeah, I think part of what really helps us is we don't have any pet stores here.
Oh, that's
The
awesome.
closest there's a PetSmart an hour and a half away and a Petco 2 hours away, and that's the closest. So a lot of people will
Okay.
still drive there for supplies and everything, but
Mhm.
when you're trying to do your research, you don't want to drive all the way there to
Right.
figure things out or just like spur of the moment buy stuff and then drive all the way back
Right.
and have to set it all up. Like it's good to be prepared. So I think they are kind of thinking that way, let's be prepared before driving anywhere.
Yeah, that's really smart. Yeah, I feel you because I want to say our nearest PetSmart and Petco, they're in Billings, Montana, and I'm in Wyoming, so it's like a 2+ hour drive. So
Oh my
I feel like
gosh.
here someone, yeah, they'd have to do their research too. But thank God for like dubiaroaches.com and Josh's Frogs, so I
Yes.
don't have to make that drive very often.
Love dubiaroaches.com. I feel like every
Yeah.
week I'm placing an order.
I have like a spreadsheet of what I need to order and how many of what I need to order. So I do it just once a month, but sometimes I'm like, uh-oh, I'm gonna have to place another order.
Yep. Yep, I do that a lot. It's like I'm like, oh, I'm almost out of hornworms. I guess I should get more. Well, while I'm here, why don't I throw on a couple more dubia roaches and maybe some superworms? Placing an order anyway, I have to pay shipping. I might as well get lots
Yeah.
of stuff.
Uh-huh. And they're awesome little affiliate programs. So I'm like, ooh,
Yes.
okay, I can get some free hornworms.
Yes, I live for the affiliate program. That really is what saved me when I worked at the zoo. Was people would
Oh
use that
yeah.
code and they'd be like, "Oh crap, I need to order more feeders." And I'd go on and be like, "Oh, you have enough points to like get X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God."
You're like, thank God. That's awesome.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. So I guess moving into our next topic, what species of reptiles and other animals do you personally keep right now?
So right now, only snakes and lizards. Although I was telling Hunter before this started, we went and got pre-approved this morning for our house loan. So we're gonna start looking. We've already been looking, but now
Yay.
we can actually go and see houses and get that ball rolling. So hopefully there will be a tortoise in the near future. Hopefully,
Ooh,
um,
exciting.
the one we really want is 10 acres of land. So I'm like, perfect for a tortoise. Let's go.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
currently at the moment, snakes, lizards. You've got your typical bearded dragon, leopard gecko, corn snake, milk snake, ball pythons. But then Euromastics, hognose. I'm looking around my room right now. Dumerils boa, normal big old boa. Your various geckos. So, and
Yeah.
I try to focus on species that are good for education, known for
Mhm.
being good with handling, good temperaments, so that when I do education programs, I've almost all of my animals can go to these programs.
Yeah. Emma Sampson is watching, so hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
And hello to everyone in the chat. I'm just realizing there's a bunch of chat messages. I haven't been checking, but
Oh,
someone
wow.
asked, can we see the chat? Yeah, I can. I don't know if you can, Zoe. Can you see the chat?
I can see it.
Okay,
I
awesome.
think I'm seeing it. I'm not sure how to scroll or if there's an option to scroll or if I can't. Oh,
Oh,
there it goes. All right, I got it. Hi, everybody.
awesome. So if you see a question that you want to answer, definitely feel free to answer. So I know you
Okay.
mentioned you want some more animals that you can do education programs with. I know you've posted on your Instagram story you have some education programs going on right now. Is that just something that you're doing, or is it through the nature center, or how is that kind of happening?
Yeah,
Because that's
so
exciting.
currently it is. It's a lot of fun. Currently, I do it through the Nature Center. I am in the process of starting my own education business and doing it separately from the Nature Center. But it's a little bit expensive to do that and to get the insurance and whatnot. And I do want to wait until I have a house and a reptile room, so it's easier for me to function and pack up animals to move animals. Because right now, working out of this room,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of space for me to run around with tubs to pack up animals. So
Right.
it's definitely a little difficult. Like doing a program once a month, okay. Doing multiple programs all the time, that'd make it a little difficult.
For
So
sure.
right
I
now I
can
do
see
just
how
do
that would
it
work.
through the Nature Center because then I'm covered under their insurance. I don't have to worry about having my own insurance for the programs, which is quite costly. So we're
Hmm.
working on it, but right now it is just through the Nature Center. And I usually do it once or twice a month. I think we're doing them twice a month in the summer, and now it'll probably go down to once a month for the school year. But yeah,
Yeah.
I bring them in. Usually I do a like presentation styled program where they all come sit in
Yeah.
and I stand up in the front and bring out one animal at a time and talk about them, kind of like I would do for a zoomobile at a zoo. But
Yeah.
with everything going on, we've been trying to get everyone to social distance and kind of stay
Hmm.
separated. I've done more of a booth style setup. So I set up
Yeah.
tables in a tent and have the animals all laid out and everything. And then they, instead of coming and sitting for the whole hour, they can come anytime during the hour to come and just look at things, touch some of the animals, ask questions, and then be on their way.
Yeah, that's
So I
awesome.
actually really
Making
like doing that styled setup better. It's a little stressful if you're by yourself because you're trying to watch all the
oh,
animals, watch all the little hands,
right.
and answer all the questions. But usually, this summer I had my sister helping me with every program. So shout out to
Awesome.
Piper. Thank you for helping me. Great assistant. Couldn't have done it
Yeah,
without her.
that's awesome. Which I know, of course, you bring your Schultepusik or European legless lizard, which I am obsessed with, by the
Oh
way.
yes.
But what other animals do you bring for your education programs?
So the two main ones I would say are Muppet, my Argentine Tegu. She is becoming very well known around town.
Oh,
She's
I
definitely
bet.
a favorite. My boss uses her picture for a lot of the events on Facebook. And so we get a lot of people that come and they're like, oh, we're coming for this event on Saturday. Will the big black and white lizard be there? We saw her picture on Facebook. And I'm like, well, probably. So I bring her a
Yeah.
lot for like everything invasive programs, the
Oh,
reptile
yeah.
programs, our nature nuts. So every Thursday we have a toddler program. So once in a
Oh,
while I'll bring in an animal for that. So Muppet's the big one. And then Kronk,
uh-huh.
my Doomerals boa, is the other big
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So I try to rotate the two of them so I don't have to deal with both big animals.
Right.
But he is my best snake for education. He's big, so
Mm-hmm.
he looks impressive, but he's not overly big. And he's very
Right.
slow and docile and very
Uh-huh.
friendly. So he's like the perfect snake to bring. So they're my
Yeah.
main two. But then, of course, the ball pythons, Tansy, my bearded dragon. I don't use her often because a lot of people have seen bearded dragons. But for
Mm-hmm.
stuff like a booth where I need an animal that's just going to hang out, or if
Yeah.
I'm doing something with toddlers, that's where Tansy's
Mhm.
really good. Um, my hognoses and the legless lizards are my go-to education animals because they're just so fun to
Yeah.
talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
like at the zoo, every program I did, I brought the hognose. Penelope's a little difficult because she's still very
Oh,
small. So if I'm
yeah.
doing a presentation style program, it's hard to have a little snake. But
Yeah.
hognoses are definitely one of my absolute favorites for education. So those are usually my
Yeah.
go-tos, and then I mix everybody else in as needed.
Yeah. So I'm curious how I know you said your hognose is kind of small, which I totally relate to that because my hognose, she is, I want to say like 17 or 18 grams. So still definitely on the small end.
Mhm.
So what is your rule with like touching the hognose, or is that allowed since they're technically rear-fang venomous. Of course, it's not really gonna cause any issues, and they're not likely to bite. But I'm just
Right.
curious how you do that with like insurance, even and stuff.
Yeah, so normally I really don't let anyone hold the animals. For like my
Yeah.
personal standards, I use the rules we followed at the zoo. So I just
Hmm.
transferred everything I learned as a zoo educator over to my own personal programs. So
Yeah.
there is no holding. There
Hmm.
is touching of some animals. Penelope, and it also depends on the crowd. So I really
Hmm.
haven't had a scenario where I've been able to let people touch Penelope yet. But she
Right.
is so good that I would let people touch her if it was a smaller group. And what I do
Hmm.
with my snakes and with the lizards too, I just make sure their head's facing me. I have control of
Yeah.
their head, and then they touch the back only. So I would do
Hmm.
that with Penelope, especially with insurance. If I was off on my
Right.
own and didn't have insurance,
Right.
probably not. But I've never been
Yeah.
worried about Penelope biting or anything.
Hmm.
Rumple, my other one, I don't even know that he's going to make the cut as an education animal.
Right.
So him, I probably wouldn't let people touch. But Penelope, no doubt. When I first started doing programs at the Nature Center as a part timer, we actually had a young volunteer who was probably 6 or 7 at the time, maybe
Aw.
8, and she loved to help me. And Penelope was her favorite. So the whole
Oh, that's
time I was
awesome.
doing the presentation, she'd just be standing there holding Penelope. So I trusted Penelope, or trusted her with Penelope, and trusted Penelope with her
Yeah,
equally. So
that's
she's a
awesome.
really great snake. So as far as like someone from the random public holding her, I don't really do that
Right.
with any of my animals. But um,
Yeah.
I am planning when I have my own program to do like for small groups, you can pay like an extra cost to at the end have time to hold selected animals that I have
Yeah.
chosen. So if I know ahead of time that they want to do that, I can plan to bring a ball python, kronk,
Right.
pansy, something. So I wouldn't put Penelope as one of those animals just
For
because
sure.
of the rear fanged venomous. Do I think she's
Mhm.
going to do anything? Absolutely not.
Right.
But it's just
Uh-uh.
one of those safety things. You never know.
Yeah, it's always better to be safe than sorry, especially with like strangers. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how your education business does unfold. That'll be awesome, and I wish you the best of luck on that because that's
Thank you.
awesome.
It's been a long time coming. I finally started
Yeah.
working on a website, so it's starting to feel a little more real.
Ooh, yeah. Nice. What is the best lesson that someone has taught you about reptile keeping, or maybe a lesson that you've kind of learned on your own that you wish you would have known when you started?
Ooh, that is a really good one.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to mind immediately is that you're never going to stop learning and you're never going to stop
Uh-huh.
advancing. So I think I might have mentioned this one I did when I came on your podcast with Davis.
Yeah.
When I got Arcadius, my iguana, and he had severe metabolic bone disease and whatnot. When he started doing a lot better and turning around and looked like he was going to have a little bit of a life, um, I was so proud. I was like, look at me. I did all this research. I know this stuff. Look at this. Look at what I just did. And so I kind of got in my head that, okay, you know what? I learned all this stuff. We're good to go. And
Mhm.
then I got a couple more animals and like started doing more research there. And having to research more animals helped me see like all the different things that were changing as time
Yeah.
went on. Like for this animal, it would be like, we recommend this UVB and this is why. And I'm like, wait a second, if this UVB is so good, should I use it for this animal type of thing?
Right.
So I really started to realize that everything is going to keep changing. You're never going to stop learning. There's always room for improvement. So you're never really done. You always keep going. You always keep improving. You never are at a point where it's like you know what you need to know and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because it is so important. As reptile keepers, we are the sole source of everything that our animals need, and we have to make sure we're providing that, but also going above and beyond. And actually, Liam from Reptiles and Research is in the chat, so I'm sure he will agree with us here that it is so important to keep continually researching.
Absolutely. And hi, Liam. But absolutely.
Yeah. So, what is some advice that you would give to a new reptile keeper?
To a new reptile keeper, I would say um, definitely research as much as you can. I mean, that's a given one based on everything we've
Right.
talked about. but researching from as many places as you can, using lots of different sources. Don't just go with one place and consider that good. You've done your research. Research so many different places. Look for different articles. I mean, depending on how young you are, it might be difficult to read like a scientific article or something.
Right.
But like as many places as you can look at, and
Hmm.
then kind of, I always say like look at what they say for the minimum,
Hmm.
and then research how to go above the minimum.
Yes, that's awesome.
Because a lot of people, a lot of times you see 10 gallons recommended for leopard geckos. Okay,
Ooh,
that's the
yeah.
minimum. What can we do beyond the minimum?
Uh-huh.
So, like, for example, going back to Mia, who was sending me letters at the nature center, she
Yeah.
asked me, is this size good for like a crested gecko? And I was like,
Mhm.
it is. But for example, this is the size that I'm looking to switch my crested geckos over to. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's okay to start at one point and change your mind and grow with it. So that's
Mhm.
another piece of advice I would give to someone is, if you start somewhere, you find the minimum information, you start there. Whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. But it's
Mhm.
okay to change things, admit that you're wrong, or that you
Yeah.
want to experiment with different things, try different things, and move up.
Mhm.
It's like you could start with that 10-gallon, 20-gallon for leopard gecko, and then decide that, maybe a 40 is better. No harm,
Uh-huh.
no foul. You switch to a
Yeah.
40.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
I'm going to say, do all the research and then, pick a point, start there, and then grow from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a school counselor when I say this, but a growth mindset with reptile keeping is so important because there are so many people who are stuck in the past with, oh, I have been keeping ball pythons since
Oh,
before you were
yes.
born, and I've always kept them in a 20-quart shoebox container, and they breed just fine. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, they breed because they don't want to go extinct, but that doesn't mean that you're causing
Right.
them to thrive. So, like, even now, like scientific research, they've done studies, and like, that's not okay. So, grow with the new information because there's always going to be new information. And so, as long as you're willing to take that and learn from it, that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I say surviving isn't thriving. You want to make sure your
Yes.
animals are thriving, not just surviving.
Yes, that's very important. So, let me check the chat real quick. Yes. Okay. Liam says it's time to recommend best practices rather than the minimum to get by. I see lots of younger keepers realize this. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. And so the next topic that I wanted to talk about was your Etsy shop, Herpetology, which first, I just want to say, I am wearing one of Zoe's sweatshirts that she was so kind to send me, and I have her coasters right here. And I also have a pair of sweatpants from Zoe's Etsy shop because it is seriously like my favorite Etsy shop. So
Thank you.
seriously, yeah, it's linked in the description, I think, or on the screen.
Thank you. It's been
Yeah.
it's been a fun adventure. Part of the reason I started it was, well, there was two reasons. One, I started it when I was working at the zoo, so I needed an
Mhm.
extra source of income, and I
Yeah.
wanted a source of income that was strictly for my animals. So I knew that I could use my paychecks to cover bills and rent and whatever, but
Yeah.
that I had money specifically set aside for vet visits, food, enclosure upgrades, the whole 9 yards. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so I always knew like I wanted to start some sort of little side business, an Etsy shop, whatever. I didn't know what though. And it wasn't
Right.
until I think I was walking around a Big Lots after work one day and I saw all these like this house decor, cat
Yeah.
mom, dog mom. My best friend has four paws. And I was like, wow, I really wish that like it was this easy to find stuff for reptile keepers. And then it was like the little light bulb went off and I was like, oh my gosh, there we go. I will solve that problem.
That's your business. Yeah.
That's the business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know the herpetology, of course, herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians, but
Hmm.
herpetology, because a lot of times women in the reptile industry are underrepresented. So I think that's awesome that you're filling that gap too.
Yep. I started off targeting reptile moms, most definitely. And then over time, I've tried to be a little more inclusive to like a wider um, target audience. I still do a lot of like reptile mom specific things because
Yeah.
that's where it all started. I tried to do
Uh-huh.
stuff that like relates to me, things that I would want, and then do that more on like a widespread basis.
Yeah.
But like the sweatpants, most of the crew necks, or the crew necks, the t-shirts are all unisex.
Yeah.
So it's been fun growing it and trying different things. But that's part of the fun of having your own business, is you get to try different things. So I
Yeah.
tried to keep kind of an open niche. My niche is reptile keepers, but within that, I can, whatever my interests are for the day, I can do, whether it be signs, paintings, digital art, sweatshirts, t-shirts,
Yeah.
the coasters. The coasters are so much fun to make. They're so much work, so I don't do them
Oh, I
often,
bet.
but they're so much fun, and I always love them when they're all done. So it's just fun. It's like whatever different interest I have, I can always find a way to make it fit the shop. So I can just keep having
Mhm.
fun. If I get bored doing something, then I stop making it and I make something else. So it's been really nice having that freedom. And the shop's gotten a lot of support. So thank you to
Yeah.
everybody that has supported my little journey over the past 2 years, I think it's been.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy to think it has been 2 years because I wanna say so I started watching your videos, I think, before I really kept mini reptiles. I think I had my leopard gecko, but the iguana food shopping hauls, I
Oh,
always loved
yeah.
watching those, and I don't know why, because I didn't have an iguana, and I have no plans on getting an iguana, like, ever, but, yeah, those videos I always really enjoyed, and so when you launched your Etsy shop, I'm like, "That is really cool." But so, yeah, 2 years, it's crazy it's been that long.
Yeah, those videos were really fun to film. They never did well, but they were just fun to film, because it's like, there's all these different like grocery stores that
Right.
carry food for your iguanas, and now it's like, I only had him at the time, but now it could be applied to bearded dragons, Euromastics, because it was all about like the
Yeah.
greens, the veggies,
Mhm.
comparing the nutrition of all of the different foods that you could find there, and then comparing the cost, so you could find like
Yeah.
which store had the better deals and whatnot. So
Uh-huh.
now I should probably go back in and change the title to like buying reptile food at the
Right.
stores. But it
Gotta
applies
do
to
some
more people.
SEO updates.
Right. So it applies to more people, not just iguana owners.
Yeah. Bella says that she loves her herpetology shorts that say "hiss off" and have even worn them to the pet store.
That's
That is awesome.
awesome.
I love
Those
that.
shorts were so much fun. I love those shorts. I'm glad they did well and that people are enjoying them.
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess that's the end of, like, the topics, but we have about 20 more minutes until our hour is up, so let's look in the chat and see if we have any questions. So, yeah, definitely feel free to ask us questions because this is the fun time. Ooh, Liam wants nerdy stuff like king snake taxonomy on a shirt or something.
Ooh, good idea. I'm always looking for new ideas, trying to come up
Yeah,
with some different stuff. I've been meaning to do more like species specific things. I
yeah,
just never get around to it. I always end up doing like reptile and general things. So my goal has
mhm,
been to do like more species specific, but also more amphibian things. Because besides like the
yeah,
frog coasters and the sweatpants, I haven't really done much in the
yeah,
way of amphibians, and it's herpetology. So I need to work some more
right,
amphibians in there.
uh-huh. That's awesome. What is, like, the biggest lesson that you have learned from running your own small business?
Oh boy. Um, Somewhat time management.
Mhm,
And that's not just because of Etsy, though, it's because of everything that I do with the animals, work,
yeah,
skating, coaching, the business, my illustration business. So it's like
yeah,
I do a lot, because when I
uh-huh,
have an idea, I want to run with it. So it's trying to manage the time to fit it all in, but
yeah,
also tweaking the business to fit my lifestyle and to keep it so I don't get burnt out. When I
right,
first started, most of the things I had in my shop were made to order. So,
mhm,
all of my signs were hand painted.
yeah,
So, I did one, put it up on the shop, and then had blanks. So, if people ordered them, I'd pull it out,
yeah,
hand paint it, let it dry, and ship it off. And that took so much time. And once I started getting more orders, 'cause I started couple months before Christmas, and it was Christmas time that I moved home, and I didn't close the shop. So I moved home.
oh,
I was hand painting signs, making car decals, and it just became
yeah,
a lot. And I think at that point was when I
mhm,
decided that I wasn't going to do very many like made to order, custom made things anymore.
yeah,
It's more fun for me if I can just experiment with things, put them in the shop, and when they're gone, they're gone. If they're really
right,
popular, I'll make more. If they're not, then I didn't spend a lot of time working on them. So
yeah,
that's been a big change, is figuring out how I want to run the business and what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So less custom stuff, more, this is an item. You either buy it or you miss it.
Right. For sure.
I'm not making 10 of them.
Right. Yeah. Time management, that's definitely been something that I have learned just with like my businesses, because I'm in high school. I'm a sophomore in high school. Plus, I have a YouTube channel, a podcast, and then, of course, now Reptile Coffee Club. Basically, how my brain works is I get an idea and I have to make it happen.
Yes. Yep, that's exactly how I work. And I forgot
Mhm.
YouTube. That's the other thing I do. See, there's
Yeah.
so many things I can't even remember them all.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Liam says, with things like having an online store or a YouTube channel, I find it hard not to work 24/7. Like you can't get it off your mind. Oh, same.
Yes.
Like the YouTube Analytics app, I had to put it on the second page in my home screen because I just kept looking. I'm like, who's commented? How, like, is this video doing good? All those things.
Mine's on the last page of my phone, and I still, without fail, check it like 10 times a day. I keep saying I'm going to give myself a schedule. Like on Thursdays, I'll check the YouTube stuff and answer comments. But if it's not
Right.
Thursday, don't touch it. But without fail, every morning I wake up and I'm like,
Oh,
do
yeah.
I have new comments?
Yeah, I feel you. It was so funny. So the snake discovery build off the night before we all went to dinner, and I think there was not a single person who halfway through dinner didn't like just check their analytics. Actually, there was one person who left his phone in the vehicle so that he wouldn't do that. But the rest of us were like, "Ooh, we've just got to check, just got to see."
That's smart. That's smart.
Uh-huh.
'Cause I can only imagine, like, that was such a big event, and it looked like so much fun. I can only
Yeah.
imagine how your analytics just.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was insane. Like they went from like maybe 20,000 views a month to like total to like 80,000 views that month. And now it's of course slowly coming back down, and it's so sad. I'm like, dang it, why couldn't have like I rode that way for a while longer?
Right,
But
keep going
hey,
with it.
seriously, it has been incredible.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it looked like so much fun. I loved watching everyone's videos, and they all look so good at the
Yeah.
end.
Thank you. Outperformance Life asks, what's your advice and how to get started with snakes and how to get used to holding them? Ooh, that's a great question.
Ooh. Oh my. Oh gosh. Okay, that's a loaded question.
Right.
So what's
For
your
sure.
advice on how to get started with them? I always think that the best way to get started, and I may have had the leisure of doing this, I just didn't really look into it, is if you can find somebody local to you, somebody that has
Yeah.
snakes, I would definitely say start there, because then you get the hands-on with them without having
Yeah.
to commit to it. That way you can kind of see if it's something you want to do. You can get used to holding them beforehand. You can kind of see what that person is doing care-wise, so you kind of have an idea of what you have to look forward to. So if you can find
Absolutely.
someone to connect with that already has a snake, I would say that's a really good starting point. I didn't do that. I just kind of jumped in 2 feet first, got Phoenix, and went from there. I was a junior in college and had never held a snake before. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, so I never had the opportunity to. So
Yeah.
I was like, the only way I'm going to get this opportunity is to do it myself, I guess. But I definitely would suggest finding somebody that you can connect with to kind of get your feet wet with starting with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So like I'm trying to think where you could go. So maybe if you have a local pet store that sells reptiles, just say like, I'm super interested, but I don't quite know if this is for me. Is there any way I could hold one? And even if they don't let you hold one, you could probably like pet one and interact with it that way. Or if you have a local herpetological society, I think the Midwest has a ton of them. You could be like, you could Google whatever your state or town's name is, Herp Society, or even just, I don't know. Maybe if you have like a, if you have like a local nature center, you could ask someone like Zowie.
Yep. Unfortunately, we don't have snakes at our nature center.
Oh, true.
But that's why I have to bring mine in.
Yeah.
But no, the pet store idea and the Herp Society idea is really good. I didn't think about those because we don't have either here. But if you do have that local to you, then that's a great idea.
Yeah, the closest thing to a herpetological society that Wyoming has is a Facebook group that consists of 80% highly questionable reptile care.
Oh, jeez.
It's like 600 people, and I'm like, okay, I need to leave this Facebook group.
Yeah, I see a little bit of that. We have an Upstate New York Facebook group.
Mm.
Of course,
Mhm.
Upstate can mean anything from
Right.
New York City and up, Albany
Right.
and up, actual Upstate. It's like nobody can agree on how to divide New York properly.
Oh yeah.
So
That
as
was
much
like
as it's called Upstate New York Reptile Group,
you're like
I feel like I see people from New York City in there. And I'm like, that's as far south as you can get in New York State.
you're like, you are not allowed in this group.
Right. Don't you have a New York City group?
Right?
Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
there's gotta be a
traveling
ton of reptile
7 hours to New
keepers
York
there.
City to get reptile.
Right.
This is the Upstate group. I have to go
Yeah.
minimum 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever really driven very far for a reptile. Like an hour to go and get my first leopard gecko Peyton, but otherwise I'm trying to think. Yeah, the rest of my reptiles I've just FedEx overnighted them because have you ever had a reptile shipped to you, Zoe?
I have not.
Ooh, okay.
Part of that I feel like is that most of our year is freezing cold winter.
Oh, true.
So there's very limited time where we could actually have reptiles shipped. But
Right.
usually I go to several expos throughout the year. So if there's an animal I'm looking
Nice.
for, I can usually find it at an expo, or I just touch base with somebody through Facebook or Craigslist or something and then just
Yeah.
make the drive.
Awesome. I've never been to a reptile expo, so I need to find
Really?
one. But of course, yeah, in the middle of Wyoming, there's 500,000 people in the whole state. So
How far are you from
it's,
Tinley?
I am like probably 13 or 14 hours. I was really
Oh.
hoping to go in October, but I'm not going to be able to. But March or June or maybe October of next year, I've got to make the trip because,
Mhm.
yeah, I know
A
you're
bunch
going
of
in
us are
October,
going.
right?
Yep, a bunch of us are going. I'm driving, so it's 12
Oh,
hours.
wow. Nice.
So, yep, I'm bringing my boyfriend with me, and we're going to make it a zoo road trip since we have to go through Ohio and
Awesome.
whatnot. I've already been to
Yeah.
most of the zoos in Ohio, but the I think Columbus Aquarium I haven't
Yeah.
been to. I love
Okay.
Toledo Zoo, so I'd love to go back there again. And then,
Cool.
of course, when we're in Tinley, we're going to stay the first night in Chicago and go to Shed Aquarium and hopefully Lincoln Park
Hmm.
Zoo too. So we're just going to turn it
Yeah,
into like a zoo road trip to try to like break up the days a little bit, break up the driving.
for sure.
Because 12 hours, that's a long time, but it ended up being
Yeah.
cheaper to pay for gas than to pay for plane tickets. And then we've got a
Right.
car and we can do different things. So,
Yeah, you can make it a fun trip.
right. Yeah, we
Do
were
you
going
think
to
you'll
have a
go?
zoo. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you think you'll go anytime in 2022?
Back to Tinley?
Yeah.
Maybe. It'd
I
probably
guess it
be more
depends on
so
how fun it really
October.
is.
Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
probably be more so October just to give
Hmm.
kind of time in between the big money spend
Right.
and the 12-hour
Yeah.
car ride.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, maybe. Of course, next
Cool.
year, hopefully, I'll have like house payments and everything. So who
Yeah.
knows what money
Oh,
will look like.
right.
But I definitely wanted to go before I had to deal with all that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I'm really thinking about just waiting until next October to go because it seems like that's the one that a lot of people make the trip for because there's a lot
Yeah.
of breeders who come from like Ham, Germany right before or right after their big show. So it's like it's a big deal for reptile keepers throughout the world. So I'm like, I have to go at some point in my life because I've never
Hmm.
been to a reptile expo. So that's the one to go to, I guess.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure. Kind of wanted to go. May and Lissa, so Medusa and Lissa's Lizards.
Yeah.
We've been planning on going. We were going to go last year. Of course, then it got
And
canceled.
yeah.
Then we were
Hmm.
planning for October. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
May's not going to be able to go, but Lissa's still going, and she's bringing Neptune the chameleon, so I'll get to meet her.
Awesome.
And Jordan from JJ's Reptile World will be
Yeah.
going. So it's going to be super awesome to be able to finally meet everybody that I've talked
Yeah.
to like every day for the past 2 years. So it's going to be very exciting. So I figured this is definitely the one where it seems like everybody is going.
Uh-huh.
So don't want to miss
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh, for sure. Yeah, I've got to go at some point because it seems very awesome. And yeah, that's super cool that you're going to get to meet some of your like friends. I used to
Yeah,
live just over an hour from May for like 3 years and we never ended up finding a time that would work for us to
that's
meet.
crazy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember listening to the podcast that
Yeah.
when you guys had her on and you guys found that out. And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
Like,
we had to pause recording to like, wait, really?
yeah, that's crazy. It's too bad you guys couldn't get together and do like room tours
Yeah.
or reptile room tours.
Yeah.
Meet the reptiles.
Mhm. Yeah, when I go back to visit friends and stuff, I'll have to make it work because I'll fly in like pretty close. So I'll have to definitely find a time to stop by and say
Oh yeah,
hello.
especially with our whole reptile room makeover.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Taylor Voss says the biggest expo of Europe is this Sunday in the Netherlands. Dave Kaufman went once and he made a video about it too. Oh, that's cool.
That's
Have
awesome.
fun if you're going.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think he's supposed to be at Tinley, so that's me exciting.
Yeah, he is. And so is Jessica from Jessica's Animal Friends. I
Yes.
know she's going.
Yep. Yep,
All
I remember
sorts of
her saying
cool.
that she was going. I think Taylor,
Yeah.
so Sip Reptiles, I think
Hmm.
she's planning on going. So it's gonna be like
Cool.
there's gonna be so many people there. So I'm very excited to
Yeah.
finally meet everybody.
Uh-huh, that's awesome. But yeah. So I guess Taylor, if you're going to the one in the Netherlands, I hope you have fun because that sounds very cool.
I know that'd be awesome, like to go to like a reptile expo in another country because they like
Yeah.
depending on like the rules with imports and everything. Sometimes they just have like
Hmm.
they have different things that we
Yeah.
can't get here or you don't see very often here. So I feel like it'd be fun to go somewhere else just to look, see what they've
Yeah,
got.
exactly. I envy Dave Kaufman how he's like made a business out of traveling around the world to see
Yeah.
reptiles because that is awesome.
Yeah, I said that was kind of like what I would do when I left the zoo. I was like, instead of like
Mhm.
working with these animals, I want to be able to
Right.
travel around and like vlog
Mhm.
going to see these animals. So now I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that costs money.
Right. For sure.
Right? Like, oh, wait, a plane ticket costs that much? Oh, wait, and then I have to
Yeah.
find somewhere to stay too. Oh, maybe someday.
Yeah, for sure. That's the worst part about traveling. It used to not be so expensive, but now plane tickets, it's hard to find a plane ticket under like $300.
Hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah,
dang it. But
that's about where it was getting down to for us to fly to Tinley. I think the cheapest
mm,
it dropped was like 314. And then
oh wow.
but that was through Hopper, and the cheapest
Yeah.
one was like a 24-hour trip. So you had like a
Mm,
12-hour layover somewhere. And I was like, I could
yeah.
drive that distance, 12 hours,
Uh-huh.
and be there.
Yeah, be there
24
before the
hours
flight.
just to fly that
Yeah.
distance? I'm like, nope, we're driving.
Right. The Hopper app is awesome though. I've never actually
Mhm.
booked a flight through it, but I have like all the major reptile expos in my phone, and I think if I were to go to Henley next March, it would. So I'm like, there's no reason that I wouldn't want to do that since it's just like I don't think it'll ever be that price again.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at booking all of our hotels through Hopper because, like, I found the
Uh-huh.
hotels I want, and I'm like, out of curiosity, how much are they here? And I pulled them up on
Yeah.
Hopper, and it's like $30 cheaper. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, we're booking here.
Plus, then you can get rewards that you can use for like any hotel in the future. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, or like
I'm
their
actually gonna start
carrot
booking
points or
that
whatever
stuff
they call it.
this afternoon.
Nice.
I keep going to book it, and then I have my wallet on me. So I purposely brought up
Oh,
my wallet so that after this, I can sit there and book everything.
yeah. Matt says, "So glad I made it. Let me get my iced coffee." Nice.
Hi,
It's
Matt.
fitting.
Yeah, I didn't have iced coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I have like a fancy water with lemons and limes and blackberries, trying to fit in with the topic of this talk.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Liam says that plane tickets from him to his girlfriend are like 20. I can't tell if that's euros or pounds because I don't know anything about
I'm not sure,
Europe,
but
but I am jealous. That is
right.
nice.
Like if we translate that to US, I'm not sure what that is, but if it's like $20
um,
for a plane ticket here, I would be traveling all the time.
that's 23 euro or 20 euros is $23.52.
I'll take
Well,
it.
can we please like get some European airlines to come to the US, please?
Right?
Because nice.
Right. I'd come visit everybody like every other weekend.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, you could like fly around the whole country for the price
Right?
of what a plane ticket here is.
Yeah.
Shar wants us to say hi to Shar.
Hi,
Hello, Shar.
Shar.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And Taylor wants to know, how was your experience with the snake discovery facility? It was awesome. I cannot wait to go back whenever. So I guess back to the Tinley topic. My friend Emma, who I'm not sure if you saw that video, but she lives in the Minneapolis area. So
Yes.
I would fly in there and then we would spend a day at Snake Discovery and then drive to Tinley because that's like 6 hours. But yeah,
Yeah, I
Matt
can't
is
wait
moving
to
to
visit.
Europe to travel all day.
That sounds like the life.
Yeah, for real.
I need that $23 plane ticket so I can go see Snake Discovery's new zoo.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It looked
And I
so
was there
awesome.
before it was even finished. Oh my gosh.
It looks
I
so
cannot
cool. Like
wait
I
to go
loved
back.
watching like the progress videos because
Yeah.
like I want an educate. I keep going back and forth between wanting just like an education business and an education
Mm,
facility. And like I don't want to
right.
go quite as big as Reptile Zoo because I don't have to
Right.
manage that. But like an
For real.
education facility, maybe. I don't know. So like I've been
Hmm.
loving watching like the progress videos of the build and like
Yeah.
putting everything together and setting it all up. So that's been pretty cool to watch. So I need to go see it all done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like one of my main goals in the very near or very far future, not very near future. So, Gracie from EFG Exotics and I have this running joke. We both want to move to Seattle, and then we would just like open a reptile business because she wants to be a veterinarian. So, her veterinarian clinic, and then my reptile zoo right next to it. And since
Oh, that'd be
rent in
awesome.
Seattle is so expensive, we'd have to like split it.
That would be awesome. Then you have someone to split it with. Yeah, because like I've been looking out of curiosity just to see like how much commercial property is here, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd like a house.
Right.
I'm like, I can't afford both. I mean, this is basically a
Right.
house payment, so I should probably get the
Hmm.
house first. But
Right.
I'm like, I'm still young. There's time. Who
For
knows?
sure. And that's a good investment too. It
Yeah.
will only keep going up.
Yep. Yep. So I'm like, hopefully, maybe if I like find the motivation to start taking YouTube seriously again, and then
Right.
Etsy grows and start like
Hmm.
really going in ham on this stuff. I'm like, maybe someday in the future it can just fund
Yeah.
itself. That would be nice,
Uh-huh. All it takes is one video to hit the algorithm and then
right?
boom, you're at the level with like Snake Discovery because that's what happened to them. They had a few thousand subscribers and then they had a video of their snakes hatching that got like millions of views and
Yes.
there they are. So just
Like it
keep
takes
up the
that one
motivation.
video,
Right? Yeah, now I just need to like find some snake eggs to hatch.
right? I know I have to find like the next thing because it
Uh-huh.
was all of my iguana content that got all
Yeah,
the views, and I'm like, well,
right.
that doesn't work for me anymore.
No.
Like, all right, who's going to be the next favorite of the channel? Because everyone likes
Yeah.
Muppet. Maybe some Tegu videos.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's a lot of Tegu content on the internet, but most of it sucks. So I think if you
Yep.
made good Tegu content, then that would do very well because people can tell if you're being genuine or not, and you could
Yep.
be genuine with that and do very well.
That's what I found with the iguana content. Like, there was
Yeah.
really no like YouTuber, like specific like reptile YouTuber that had an iguana and made content about it. So it was all like
Hmm.
random Joe Schmo taking videos on their flip phone and uploading it type of
Right.
content. So it's like, all right, we've
Uh-huh.
got a place here in YouTube. We can make content that nobody else is. So all those
Yeah.
videos did really, really well. So and I still
Hmm.
had a long list of videos. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe with the house, my hope is to
Yeah.
have more room because I want several different iguana species still. So
Oh, they're awesome.
hopefully there will be more iguana content coming soon.
For
Hopefully.
sure. Yeah, hopefully that can be your thing again because I don't know, I need to find like what my niche is because I just kind of do reptiles in general.
Mhm.
And it's so funny, anytime I make a video with White's tree frogs in the title, boom, 5,000 views, 8,000 views, but the rest of the amphibian content it's like here you can have 500 views. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
because amphibians are my
Tree frogs.
favorite, but
Mhm. Well, there you go. Take it and run with it.
yeah, exactly.
I feel like people can tell too when you're like making content about something that's like your favorite.
Yeah, for sure. Someone wants to know what Zoe's YouTube channel is. It is ZA Reptiles, and I think it's the first link in the description. So if you go click on that, you can go subscribe, and it's also on her shirt.
Yep. It so happens you have to do laundry.
Yeah, most Regius content is abysmal. I think you mean like Python Regius, like the ball python, or in your case, royal python,
Mm.
because you're from Europe. But yeah, there is not very much really good content on it either.
Yeah.
It's mostly the big YouTubers who are like, here is my ball python's rack that is the size of a shoe.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep. So
like great.
spoiler alert, I actually have a 4x2x2 built in my garage right now for Kahlua.
Nice. Oh,
I just have
awesome.
to get the back on because I got
Hmm.
impatient and decided to build it while my whole family was camping. And then I realized I had some measurements wrong. So the back
Oh
doesn't quite
no.
fit. So
Oh,
I
I've done
need
that.
my dad or my boyfriend or somebody to cut the wood down a little bit so it fits. But once
Hmm.
that's done, I can paint it and seal it and get that all set. So one of my ball
Awesome.
pythons has an upgrade in the process.
Nice.
Snicket still, I'm not sure what size I want to do for him because I feel like I've never really seen a big banana ball python. But every time I weigh him, like, he's still growing. So I have no idea how big he's going to get. So right now he's just kind of hanging out in his current enclosure, but Kahlua is a big boy. So he definitely needs something bigger. So I'm very, very excited about that. So spoiler alert for those that are watching, you're in on the secret. Kahlua has a new enclosure coming.
See, you get the inside scoop on Reptile Coffee Club.
Yep, because I don't think I posted that. I posted when I was building it, but I didn't say who it was for.
Okay. And now the price of plywood isn't outrageously expensive as much anymore. So, like, you can build upgrades again, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot that I want to do. And I keep going back and forth between, like, paying someone else to do it. Because last summer, when we did all of my big lizard ones, it took forever. And I don't think I've quite recovered from that yet. So I'm like, can I just throw a couple extra $100 in there to have somebody else do it for me?
Right.
So I've been in contact with a couple other people about enclosures. I have one person lined up who is going to build an enclosure for Zero, my milk snake. So he'll move out of his 40-gallon Exoterra into a 4x2x18 like the other snakes that upgraded in December. And then I've got another person I've been talking to about a 5x2x2 for Alfredo, my legless lizard.
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited about that. So I'm like, and I think they can fit over here by my door where I've got some other, like my racks where they already are. So I would just swap out the enclosures. I'm not sure about the 5-foot enclosure. So I'm like, luckily we're in the house buying stage now where we can actually like make progress. So I'm like,
for sure.
As long as I have them ready when it's time to move into a house, I can just slide the enclosure in.
Yeah.
Put the animal in. So I've got those upgrades in the plans. Now I just need to make them happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the major key. It's like, okay, I have a list of upgrades like in my notes app of what I want to do, but I'm like, do I buy the wood and make like a sturdy wood enclosure, or do I buy an Exoterra, or do I drive to Montana and buy PVC? Because Montana, for some reason, you cannot find sheets of PVC for sale in Wyoming, but in Montana you can. So I'm like,
we don't have any here. Our Home Depot had them last year, had PVC, and I went to go get some like a month or two ago to build new gecko enclosures. Yeah. And they don't even have the spot for it anymore. They put wood there now. So I'm like, we're not getting more PVC. So and I'm like, oh, okay. So that's I'm like, I want to stick with PVC. I was going to switch to wood for Zero, but because the other snakes got PVC, I'm like, I want them to match. So since I didn't build them myself, the best I can do for matching is just get another white PVC. So and he's the last one for that stack. So I'm not going to switch it up. I might as well just get him the PVC and be done with it. So I'm just going to throw money at somebody for that one. But for anything bigger than that, I do the wood because I like it. I like them sturdy, and I like to know they're going to stack. And with my PVC so far, I have found that like when I really put a lot of substrate in and try to go all bioactive and everything, it weighs it down and makes it really hard for the door to move.
Oh no.
So I'm not sure how it's going to go when we have a house and all these PVCs are actually stacked on top of each other. So they might end up switching to wood in the future anyway, but we'll see.
Yeah, you might have to build like a wood frame to like put each of them on.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea rather than having to start from base zero. Because I put a lot of work into those backgrounds. I really don't want to have to like get rid of them and start over.
Yeah, and are those the PVC enclosures that you had to go to a lot of trouble to actually like get? Oh boy.
So they're not exactly the highest quality, but they kind of sort of get the job done. Kind of sort of. So I'm like, I put that work into them. So they were supposed to be their final enclosures. So I'm going to try to make them work.
Yeah, I had that experience with a PVC enclosure recently. So did you see how Dubia roaches, or actually they rebranded to just Dubia.com, but how they released some PVC 4x2x2s? Yeah. So I pre-ordered in, I want to say March of, it must have been March of this year because it wasn't March of last year. And I just got it about a month ago, and it's the worst enclosure I've ever had.
Oh no! I almost pre-ordered one, but I didn't want to wait. I'm very impatient, so I'm like, no, I decided not to, and I figured, I'd wait and see what other people thought of them first.
Don't do it.
So, okay, good to know.
Yeah, I usually am not that quick to like dismiss a product because I know it's a new product and they gave it a
Hmm.
try, but they said it would take at the most 3 months.
Right.
And, like 6 months later, here we are. But also, it just wasn't the highest quality. And they sent me some replacement pieces that did make it a bit better. But in the future, I'm just going to go with more established enclosure makers.
Yep. Yep. So the person I have looking to do the milk snake enclosure, the PVC one, is
Mhm.
Reptiles. I've
Oh,
talked to
yeah.
him a bit in the past, and I always like how his look,
Mhm.
and they look very sturdy, and he's always posting pictures of them stacked. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we'll give it a try. So I've been in the
Mhm.
works talking with him about one. So we're gonna finalize stuff for that soon. And then I've been
Mhm.
talking to Talking Serpents for Alfredo's 5x2x2.
Awesome.
I like how quickly he gets stuff done. So it's literally like a week and he's done. So I'm like,
Oh my gosh. That's
yeah, so that's
awesome.
why I really want to go through him. So we actually
Yeah.
just ordered our Aki enclosure at work. We have our little
Mhm.
office Aki. So I actually
Yeah.
ordered through him. I convinced my boss, I'm like, it's time for him to get an upgrade. He needs his big boy enclosure now.
Right.
We should go through this guy. And because he has the
Yeah.
staining and everything. So I'm like, I can even have him stain it to match the office and
Oh,
everything.
awesome.
And she was like, all right, go ahead. So I was like, good. That's a little like trial run before I order from him. And he's been
Mhm.
great. He's been keeping me updated. He posts updates in his stories so I can see it. And I'm like, there it is.
Oh,
There it
nice.
is. So he actually just messaged me this morning or last night that they've got the
Mhm.
glass in. Glass is cut. I saw it in his
Awesome.
story. So now it's going to be making its way here. And it
Cool.
hasn't even been 2 weeks.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never hear about that. Usually it's like, yeah, I ordered my enclosure 4 months ago and it's still not here.
Yeah.
So that's like a great change. I'll
Yeah, and
definitely
he
have to
tries
look
to
into
keep the
that.
prices low so that they're affordable.
Mhm.
He has a DIY kit option, so it's like just the
Oh,
wood, and you can
yes,
choose to you can choose to not have it sealed or anything. So I
Mhm.
would do that because then I can paint it to match the wood ones that I built. So I really like
Mhm.
that. I don't like when they like finalize it for you and you don't really have much of a choice in like how it looks. So I
Yeah.
like that he just does the wood, cuts it, screws it, and then all you have to do is put it together when it gets here, but it's already like
Yeah.
more or less set for you to put together because then
Oh,
I
that's
can paint
awesome.
it to make it match everything. So I
Yeah.
definitely want to go that route.
Uh-huh. Let's see here. Would Ooh, okay. Someone says, would you say Petco is an okay place to get a reptile from? And quite frankly, I'm just gonna say, please avoid Petco to get a reptile at all costs. And this goes for PetSmart too.
Hmm.
There are a lot of awesome places to get reptiles that are locally owned or that have like good breeders, and you're gonna spend a little more to get it from a good breeder, but it's gonna be worth it because your animal is gonna live longer and cost you a lot less in vet bills in the long run. If you're looking for a specific reptile, like you can say in the chat, but I am part of a reptile rescue called Crimson Exotics, and we have a number of reptiles looking for their forever homes right now, and we can ship across the United States. So, yeah, if you Google Crimson Exotics, maybe we'll have the animal you're looking for. So, there's that.
I keep my eye on Crimson Exotics because I've still got like a list of education must-haves. So I'm like,
Oh,
should
yeah.
any of those animals pop up, I'm gonna message Hunter and be like, "Here's my
Yeah.
application."
And we always, right now, we have someone who's adopting an animal from us who has an education. I think it's like a nonprofit, but we give priority to people who are going to use it to help teach other people. So
That's
if you see
awesome.
one pop up, definitely let us know because we will make that happen for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I keep watching.
Yeah. Ooh, so this is kind of related to the enclosure discussion, and we can answer probably a few more questions, but we should wrap up soon. But would you recommend PVC over glass enclosures?
I'm like, personally, it's an aesthetic thing for me. It also kind of depends on the animal. So if I have an animal that needs
Yeah.
higher humidity, I'm gonna go with PVC over glass. I do like the looks of glass, and you can really make them work
Hmm.
with the exoterras and everything. You put in a
Yeah.
background, it covers the sides and everything. You can make it look really
Hmm.
nice, and I don't think there's a problem with that. If you're trying to
Right.
keep humidity in, it can be difficult
Hmm.
because of the screen top. In which case,
Yeah.
I like the PVCs. They hold up really well to humidity. They hold the humidity for you. And
Yeah.
like with the PVCs, a lot of times, depending on the quality of them and who's making them, sometimes they can be stacked, so it can save you a
Right.
little bit of space. Um,
Hmm.
overall, I feel like it just really goes for the look you're looking for. So I know a lot of
Yeah.
people are very pro like PVC. For me, it's more about the look that I'm going for. If it doesn't have to do with
Uh-huh.
humidity, if it's just like my hognose, my sand boa, ball python, whatever,
Yeah.
I go more for what it is I'm hoping to achieve aesthetic wise because I can make it work as long as it's not like high humidity. Like right now, my
Right.
water dragon is in a tank, so I have the mister going up constantly, and I'm having to monitor
Yeah.
the humidity. But I'm waiting for him to get a little bit bigger before he gets a PVC or a wood enclosure. Because right now he is still
Awesome.
pretty small. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably go with PVC. But
Uh-huh. For sure. And
ultimately, I would
then
choose wood.
Matt asks, was Kahlua named after what I think?
Absolutely.
Oh no, I guess I don't get this reference.
Kahlua is a type of alcohol. Not
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, type of alcohol. I'm not like a big
That's
drinker.
why I
I,
don't get
I
the
don't like most
reference.
alcohols, but my mom used to make this really good like cake trifle thing, like a cake
Ooh.
bowl, and had Kahlua
Mhm.
in it. Of
Cool.
course, she also always made one that didn't have the Kahlua in it for
Right.
me. Um, but I just kind of like the name and just the way that he looks.
Yeah.
He kind of has more like a creamy, light brown color to him, and Kahlua just seemed fitting. But absolutely, the name
Yeah.
did come from where you're thinking.
Uh-huh. And I guess our last question can be, where do you recommend getting a leopard gecko from? Leopard geckos, there are just so many of them that I would say adoption is going to be
Absolutely.
the best option. Like Crimson Exotics on the site right now, I think right now we have one that's adoption isn't pending that I'm fostering, Saffron. So if you want to adopt Saffron, I would love to see your application. But yeah, we have several that are going up soon. They're just a very flooded part of the hobby. And so I think
Absolutely.
that if you want to get your first leopard gecko, adoption is going to be a great option for you. Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there's kind of an overabundance of leopard gecko breeders. I feel like I
Uh-huh.
see a ton of leopard gecko breeders at expos.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's always the option to go through a good breeder, but like you said, there's
Yeah.
so many leopard geckos that
Hmm.
need good homes. It's like primarily what I see on Craigslist and Facebook is leopard geckos. Both of our leopard geckos here were adoptions, so
Hmm.
definitely 100% adoption would be my
Yeah.
go-to for something like a leopard gecko.
Yeah, they are the animal that at Crimson Exotics we get asked to take in more than any other species combined. Like almost every week, there are a couple people who are like, "Can we surrender our leopard gecko to you?" And a lot of times we have to say no, just because
Yeah,
there are just so many that if it's healthy, we can't always take it because we have to save room for the ones that really need our help.
right.
But yeah, I guess our last question can be, Zoe, what are your take on gopher snakes? Oops, like the Pituophis genus, my
Yeah, so
favorite.
I've actually never gotten to work with one. I don't think I've ever even really seen one besides on like videos, but from what I've seen
Right.
online, they look awesome. I would love
Yeah.
to work with one, highly
Hmm.
interested, just never had the opportunity to.
Yeah. And then I guess my thoughts would be they are awesome. Where we lived in Oregon, that was the most common species of snake, Pacific gopher snakes, which I guess is a subspecies, Pituophis catenifer. And yeah, I absolutely love them. Bull snakes, for those of you who don't know
Hmm.
what those are, but know what bull snakes are, that's Pituophis catenifer sayi, and they're also a gopher snake, and they are very awesome. So I would love to work with them in the future. If I were to get one, I would have to get one from Snake Discovery
Oh
since
yeah.
they have super cool, like a hypo white side bull snake would be one of my dream snakes for sure.
Yep, that's where I see all of the content that I see for those snakes is through Snake Discovery.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And gopher snakes, yes, I can
Hmm.
confirm they have attitudes, and it is
I've heard
so
that.
funny. They like to think that they are little rattlesnakes when they're babies. They will, yeah, it's very funny. And so, everyone, go follow Zoe on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. I think it's all ZA Reptiles. If you
Yep.
search that, you can find her. And thank you so much, Zoe, for coming on to Reptile Coffee Club. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me on. I was really looking forward to it, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think I have a little lower third. Thank you all so much for watching. So, yeah, this has been a great episode, and I'm so grateful for Zowie coming on today. This has been awesome. Again, if you missed this episode and you're just watching the replay, if you want this as a podcast, you can go to Patreon and join for just $1 and get it as a podcast. Without further ado, I will see you all next time. Please like and subscribe and go follow Zowie on everything. It's all linked in the description. I will see you all next time, and